Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. Welcome to Darkness. Kind of the standard state here on my generational farming. So just trying to kind of keep moving on what I need here. So silos are full, so I'm going to go ahead and at least move a bit there. Again, the amount is in good shape actually, so I may move more than a bit. It's $189 per liter, or per 1,000 liters. I wish it was $189 per liter. That would make a lot of money, but yeah, it's not that. But we still have the partial harvest to go to get the third cutting for the year that kind of got delayed. So I need to look at that as well. But I did get in very quickly and do the fertilizer, so I am as ready as I can be. And then after I do this, I'm going to be in the cycle of I'm going to need to lime the field and fertilize it before next year. So there's definitely some things that are happening. So we're this is the end of year 6. At this point, potentially we could still pop off in year 8, because they only need to give us a year notice of when we're moving away. So, not sure when we may hear that. We shouldn't be here for longer than 10 years. If we do, we've done something different than kind of how this was structured, but obviously that gives us almost a month before, actually a month and a half still, before we hit that limit, because it's 4 years. This is year 6, we'd have 7, 8, 9, and 10 if we went all the way to the bitter end. So we're basically at 7,500-ish, 7,600. That's about as high as we get. Sometimes this will get into the 190s. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple loads from each silo. That'll give it 70,000, which is going to be about half the day. And then I'll at least take a look and see if I can mow the grass, because if I can mow it, that kind of puts it in the state that I need. More importantly, it gives me something. My biggest problem will be if I'm not at state 3 of 3. But keep in mind, again, even if I am at state 3 of 3, I'm going to be, there's probably about 200,000 to 300,000 liters less that I'm going to get than I would have if everything had run according to plan. So kind of the reality of what we run into with a real-time competition is sometimes things fall apart. So I'm trying to think through, because I'm going to be gone for a few days. There may be a couple days where I couldn't do anything at all. And so today being November, really kind of December, because if you look at it, we've only got 2 or 3 hours, and it is morning. It's no longer early morning here. So we're hours and hours into the real day, but just about ready to hit midnight here. But we're probably going to be what? Because we're going to have 2 more hours in a few minutes. Oh, I need to head over here. I do this every time I'm switching. I'm kind of in autopilot. So that'll put us at about 9-10 hours into the day, real day, when we hit midnight. So we're not quite half a day staggered, but close to it. So it's like each day is kind of really a couple months. But let's say today's December, because otherwise I'm only talking about like early morning that I'm going to be able to do things. So if today's December, tomorrow will be January, February, all right, March, April. I think March, April are the days that I'd likely not be present. And so that should actually be okay. And probably a little bit of the best scenario that I could have, because normally this thing wouldn't be done, the cycle wouldn't be done till May anyway. And so, you know, that's going to be a bit of the challenge, is how is this going to go? And that may be yet another reason, like if I can cut today, because it's not going to grow tomorrow. Like between November and December, it's just going to be stagnant. So what I definitely want to do is get the mowing done before the time flips. So I've kind of just got a fire under my butt here that just got lit that I wasn't aware of a few seconds ago. But as I think this through, which again is part of the fun in real time, a little bit of a simulation, I suppose, of what farmers really are dealing with, where they wake up in the morning, or, you know, I doubt they're waking up or starting their day at 10 o'clock at night and like, what am I going to do today? But that's the reality we have here, given that it's real time. And it's like, yeah, I miss the day, let's say, because that would have been last night here. And so if I can get that done, then at least it's kind of on the next cycle. I mean, in theory, it shouldn't matter when it goes to that next cycle over winter, because it just sits there. But I don't know, and so rather than take that chance and make it even worse, because kind of the scenario that's playing out in my head, unfortunately, is we've got, like, let's say it makes me wait till June to be, in essence, ready to harvest, which in essence is the 4th day that the grass is growing. Then I need to wait July, August, September, and then October, and like, I can't get 3 harvests done next year without, again, just potentially continually doing a partial. So, like, this can, I just don't remember a year, though, that I only did 2. And maybe that's because I basically got myself on time by doing the first one in the spring quickly, and then basically cutting a day off. And so that may be what I need to do, is that no matter what the state is in May, I may need to just mow. And if I've got another partial, I've got another partial. But otherwise, I think I would have a partial at the end, because again, it would be June, and then July, August, September, I'd be the same way. Like, I harvested in September here, and then I'd be sitting here in November like, yeah, I need to cut again. So so yeah, I've done a number on myself, I'll tell you that. You know, I'm talking about at least 500,000 liters that I've just kind of screwed myself out of by making a 1-day delay and missing a day. So that's the hair's breadth that we're surviving on here, to try to really max everything out, which is stressful, because it's just not right now in my life. I've got a lot more activity going on in real life, and it's pulling away from my ability to do as much as I was able to do here before. So, you know, I've been super successful in generational farming, working to get all of that taken care of, but now I'm kind of hitting the reality that I think a lot of folks are, which is, you know, during the day I can't just pop in for a little bit and while I'm waiting for something else to happen with work or whatever, that I can go ahead and farm. It's just not working out as easily as it did before. And obviously, as I've said a time or two, you know, this is still a game. It's not life. It's not making, you know, it's not making income for my family and so forth. So obviously, my focus needs to be on what's going on in real life. And this ends up being things I do on the side, which I would imagine is the situation for the vast majority of people. You know, I don't know the reality of someone, say, like the Farm Sim guy, or, you know, Daggerwin or whatever, but even those guys, I think, you know, the Farm Sim guy maybe puts out a video or two a week, so he may be busy and just doing things on the weekend. He's just got enough of a following at this point that he can do that and still maintain an insane amount of views and so forth. Once again, that's one of those things that I would love to get to. I think it's just luck in some cases, because I believe he started his channel like during the pandemic and just got a lot of viewership right at the beginning in 2020, where people were looking for things to do, and a lot of people found Farming Simulator and said, hey, I'm going to watch this British guy here and go ahead and, you know, subscribe and this and that, and it's worked out for him. So that is good stuff for them, but it's a challenge for the rest of us who are now trying to compete in a world that is a bit more turned on. Of course, you know, in the real world, we've got in the US here the stupidity of the debt ceiling, where politicians, and trying to not be too super political, this isn't a political series, but, you know, a party that I used to think had some value has now suddenly fallen entirely into the crapper, and it's pretty much worthless. So I don't think for those who do follow anything, it's going to be too difficult to figure out what I'm talking about. But you know, and so they've severely disappointed me in the direction they're heading, and they've lost me probably permanently. I'm just hoping they've had that happen with many millions of other people, and that at some point they wake up and stop destroying the world, because this debt ceiling thing is gonna turn out to be a real big mess. Oh, this is even better. Because yes, if this is ready to harvest, I'm gonna get what I need off of it, but more importantly, I think it's going to put me on a decent schedule, because this will be one of whatever, and then like March, April, and then like I said, May, you know, if I harvest in May, and then it's June, July, and then on August, and then September, October, November, well, it's still off a bit, I don't know, but this is a better result than I thought. But yeah, absolutely gonna go ahead and make sure that I am able to do what I need here. So I'm gonna turn this on, and we're gonna mow, and we're gonna get this picked up. And like I said, doing it today is gonna be better than doing it tomorrow, and it should not take me 2 hours to mow. Now, it will, by the time I am able to pick up and everything else. You know, this is the challenge, is there's a lot of work here, and to some degree, you know, one thing I haven't talked about in this series in a long time, so if your only view of Farming Simulator has been my channel and this series, you probably haven't come across the work time information or the work time calculation that I do, or which is the fact that Farming Simulator, you basically can use a real-time work calculator. And what I mean by that is, like, if a farmer had to figure out, hey, I have X acres on my farm, and these are my implements, this is my working width, and so forth, and you know, this is the speed I can work at, how long will it take to work my 1,000 acres? There's a calculation for that, and I had come across that, and you know, in researching as I played the game early on, somewhat early on. So let me be careful, because again, I'm trying to speak coherently and without too much choppiness, but as I'm doing things, you know, it's mental energy shifts, and the timeshare in my brain is not working quite well. So now I should be okay, although I've obviously got to pay attention to the edge. But what I was able to determine is you can use a real-world work time calculator, and the way this game is set up, like, that's what it's going to take. So if I had 1,000 acres in real time and I was working it with the same equipment in real life, it's going to take me as long in game as it would in real life to work those 1,000 acres. So the best example I would give you of something insanely large like that is, you know, I'm a fan of Millennial Farmer on YouTube. Watch him just because, you know, I think farming is fascinating. It's one of those things I can't do in real life, but that's why I enjoy it here, because it's just fun. And so watching a real life farmer that's a bit entertaining on YouTube, I kind of got pulled into that about really the same time. It was kind of, I discovered Farming Simulator, and then suddenly, along with the Farming Simulator videos that YouTube was serving me up, was these videos of real farmers. So I think there's some corn guy, Cade or Kale, or I don't know. Obviously it's not someone I've watched regularly, but there's some dude, younger kid, that, you know, is on a corn farm, and so he had a YouTube channel, and there was some girl as well, that Laura something or other, but Millennial Farmer is the one that kind of hooked me and was more interesting for me to watch. The others kind of fell into, frankly, the YouTube bucket that probably most people fall into, but it's just not my thing for, again, you know, the mature simmer, kind of the fake drama, you know, excitement, fake excitement, and happiness, and whatever that I've promised you you're not going to see here, because it's just not going to be faked and whatever. I'm going to give you the enthusiasm I've got. I'm certainly enthused about things, but I just think a lot of these channels go over the top and just, you know, being super happy, super excited, super whatever, and, you know, maybe that's why they do really well, and I don't do that well, because that's what people are looking for. But I think I'd be miserable trying to fake that along and trying to do that. But in any event, that's what I felt with the other two channels. It was a lot of that, and there wasn't a lot of seriousness, where the Millennial Farmer, he's a little bit older, and, you know, he's exciting, he's energized, he tries to stay upbeat most of the time, and he throws in a little bit of humor here and there, and it resonates with me, and that's the channel I got excited about. But he's got hundreds and hundreds of acres, and you know, it'll take them for a harvest, it'll take them a week or two to get the harvest done sometimes, especially if they're fighting weather and they've got rain and all that going on. You know, obviously here in game, where it's 1 month per day, like, we don't have that kind of calendar option, you know, which also then for me is exactly why you don't see me working hundreds of acres here, because it would be impossible. I guess, I mean, the likelihood of anyone seeing this and hearing it and responding to it is probably virtually going to be zero, but of course, if I don't say something, it's absolutely going to be zero because you wouldn't even know that I was thinking it. But I don't honestly know how interesting it would be to do. But one of the things I've not seen, I half wonder though, like, would there be an audience for something that was in essence a series that was like real farming as far as size? I mean, I'm not talking about a realism series where I'm only, doing a lot of what we do here in FSN, like manual attach and whatever, where I don't have kind of fake automation, I don't use auto drive, I don't use whatever. I think in those series, though, I probably would have to if I was to ever try this. But kind of the thing, and it wouldn't be in real time, because that would be insane. I'm not looking to create another full-time job or something, because that's what it would turn into if I was really running that. But that would also mean it would go really, 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 really slow. But I just don't know if there would be some sort of an interest in, like, run something at the scale of, say, the Millennial Farmer. Again, that's the best example I have that people might be able to reference. So I'd do a little research, I'd figure out how many acres he has and try to figure that out. And then I would do it as a single player thing, at one speed, so it would be real time, but I would basically run the farm and it would take however long it takes. So if I need, 150 hours to harvest all the fields, like, that's how long it would take, and it might, be 4 months of real time before I ever got one harvest done. Where basically I would set the calendar, the longest thing that Farming Simulator lets me, and I don't remember if it lets you do 30 days or if it's something like 28 or 24, I don't remember, per month. But basically that's what we'd be doing, is we would just let the farm proceed almost on a standard calendar, but I wouldn't be doing things likely, I can't imagine, on a real calendar. So I mean, what you would probably see is there might be multiple videos even in one day of work, because depending on how much I was doing and showing or whatever, or just what I was chatting about, and that would probably become the thing. I think the only way to really make that sustainable without just I'm doing 40 hours of work off screen and then showing you 15 minutes of montage or something, like here's harvest for this year, it took me 100 hours and here are 2 of them or something, I don't know. So that's the thing. I mean, even as I chat about it, it almost sounds like a terrible idea, and might be why nobody did it, because I think it would be too close to reality, and it would be too tedious, because I think to be able to do it without just scrapping everything else, because that's the other thing, like I still would have this stuff going, but I just don't know that there'd be any appetite for it. I don't know that anybody would really watch it and like, ooh, I'm going to subscribe to a channel and I'm going to watch this series. It's kind of like it's not that bad, I don't think, as the example I'm going to share with you that's popped in my head, but it's almost like if there was a watching paint dry channel and they just had a camera looking at the wall and you could just watch paint dry in real time, and see it turn from kind of shiny and wet to whatever it does and however long it takes, however many hours. I don't know if it would be like the watching the paint dry channel for farming. Because I mean, even Millennial Farmer, like with Real Farming, I mean, he's doing a half-hour video, and that would certainly be what I would target, is I would just edit stuff down to, here's half an hour of something, and, you know, so it would turn into a little bit of I'm doing hours and hours and hours of work, but that's not necessarily any different than what's happening with anything I'm doing. It's just the time scale of progress would be substantially less. So as opposed to here, wherein, you know, the course of probably 6 or 7 videos, because I mean, if we think about it, I think this is going to be episode 29 of this generation. I don't know why I'm doing this. I had snapped the line, and that means I'm just totally screwing things up. So let me go back here. I forgot I had snapped the line the last time up, because sometimes I go around twice, depending on how bad things are. So I did pretty well here. I just started to drift up there. Alright. But, you know, it's episode 29. We're getting close to the end of season 6. Again, I might show some things in winter, depending on what I'm doing. I'm going to be moving silage and so forth, so I may do a short video there to just share what's happening. So, you know, let's say we got 30 done, 30 episodes in 6 years. That means in 5 episodes, we're done with a year. But the likelihood there would be, in 5 episodes, we're just scratching the surface of a single month. And, you know, like I said, if anybody even hears this and cares to comment, I'd love to hear the comment. Like, would you be like, oh my god, that would be horrendous, don't even think about wasting your time doing that? Or are there some folks out there who would be like, yeah, that would be cool, nobody's ever done that, it'd be so interesting? And I also wonder to some degree how maybe they may be completely genuine, thinking it would be interesting, but then I'm wondering if the reality lives up to the expectation in that case. And then you think it's going to be awesome, and then after you've watched 6 episodes and it's only progressed 3 days in the game, and, you know, we're still in the same month, and all we've been doing is planting the 40 fields I own or something, you know, and we're finally finishing up and then getting ready. Because I think what would also start happening is there would be then huge swaths of the month that would just be simulated because I'd have all the work done. So, I mean, even when I debated doing something like that, like when I first got into Farming Simulator, like I didn't know the difference, and so with the sim, I'm always kind of like, more is better. So I think when I started on single player, I did like set the game to the longest time I could. And I don't remember, honestly, in 19, like if you needed seasons to do that, or just inherently in the game, could you extend things? But even then, I think the most you could do was like 3. You know, I think you could break each season into 3, so the longest you could extend it was a year would take basically 12 cycles, because you'd get you know, 3 per season, which is in essence what this is doing now. I mean, you know, every day is a month is kind of the default. And you know, because you'd have like, I think you'd have early, mid, and late of every season. So like early summer, midsummer, late summer would be your days, and it wouldn't have months per se, but it operated the same way, so that was easy to understand. But I don't remember if you were able to make it, extend it like another batch where you could have like early summer 1, early summer 2, so in essence turn it into 24 segments or not. Alright, I think I'm good with enough of the headlands here. But yeah, so I don't know. What do people think about that as a possible different way to play that hasn't been shown? But I think it hasn't been shown because I think I think it could be excruciating from both sides, if I'm being honest with my reaction to it, because I'm just not sure, even as I think it through, how you'd play through that, if the expectation would meet what I'm thinking, or it just turns into a lot of stuff with then a lot of skipping in between, because you're just waiting for things to grow and whatever. Because if you think about it, like if you've got a farm that is just growing crops, I'll just stick with the millennial farmer as the example that you virtualize. And so you're planting in the spring, and then like they do a lot of machine maintenance and stuff in the middle, because they're kind of waiting around for the crops to grow. You know, there's not machine maintenance work that's going to be happening here or anything like that. You know, because you pull up to the workshop, you hit repair, your machine's maintained, you're done. You know, you can't simulate in the game per, like, say, a car simulator or something. Hey, I'm sitting here knocking the points off the tiller and putting new ones on and whatever, and, you know, you're running around with a hammer to 30 of these, and, you know, you can do a video on that or something, which is what happens on the millennial farmers sometimes. It's like, hey, we're getting the plow ready for next spring while we're sitting here waiting for the fields to be ready to harvest. So it's like, you know, you'd have planting, you'd do the work, obviously, if you weren't fertilizing when you planted, but I can't imagine that I would be creating all that extra work. Like, I'd be doing everything I could to be super efficient. So, you know, I'd probably have to spray for weeds or something, but that would be it. And then you're waiting the 4, 5, 6 months until you can harvest, and then again we'd have days and days and days of harvest, and then it would be done. So I think that's partially why people look at it and say, other than the day, you know, the time sitting up there in the corner looking a little different, like, I don't know that what you'd be served would be that different, other than you'd just be getting vast quantities of content for a given task. So as opposed to whatever this turns into, you know, X amount of minutes, or maybe, you know, it gets to an hour or something sometimes of mowing grass. You know, I could give you 15 hours of mowing grass each year or something, and you know, the only difference is just different fields here and there, because at the end of the day, we're circling back to what got me on this tangent to begin with, is that in the game it takes as long in real time to do the work as it does in real life. So if you've got 300 acres in the game, it's going to take you the same time that it would to work with those implements. And so, you know, in the game, obviously you can play with things like run time faster, like I do in my VIP series, kind of per the standard of what a lot of YouTubers do, and, you know, you run it at 5 times speed. And so even though you've only got, say, you know, a couple hours of work that you're doing, like a whole day goes by, because, hey, it's, you know, I've done all this work. But what we're doing there is we're faking the fact that it took me all day to do something that really didn't take me all day, because otherwise I'd need to have 10, 12, 14 hours of time to play to do that. And so that's in essence what we're talking about, is instead of faking it, it would be doing that with this, but you're doing it in a way that you're able to, you know, do it across multiple days in a month, as opposed to I just have to sit here in real time and do it. But even that, like, just talks me through it, because if I'm running this way, it's just that would give me more time, because instead of November, so I guess, yeah, no, I guess there is a difference, because like right now there's nothing I can do to make November longer than, say, like the best I could do is I could make November 48 hours, and the way I do that is the game allows you to slow it to 0.5 time. So you could do that and have every in-game day take 2 days in time. So it would give you 48 hours where, again, whatever 20 level, I want to say it's 28 days, I think, is what Farming Simulator lets you do. I could do that and then leave it running at real time, and I'd get 28, 24-hour days that I'd be able to function in. So I'd have a lot more hours I could do. So if it took me more than 24 hours, which it absolutely would, to do some of the tasks on, say, 500 acres, I'd be able to do that in a month and not have to, do things or just have less. So in any event, that's a long discussion about all that. You can kind of see, it's given us something to talk about here. And as I said, in that kind of a series, I think we'd just be like, I don't know, we'd be chatting about world events or something. It wouldn't even be about Farming Simulator, because otherwise it would just be a time-lapse series where I wouldn't be talking at all, and not sure how exciting that would be. So it's not something I'm like, oh, I'm just chomping at the bit to do this. I'm going to do it either way. It's just a thought that occurred to me here, and something that there's a little bit of curiosity, but I think the shine would wear off the pig pretty fast, to be honest, because it would just be very monotonous, and I think monotonous to do, just like it would be monotonous to watch, in some cases, because if all I'm doing is harvesting corn for 10 episodes in a row, A, that's all I'm doing in that series, and B, that's all you're seeing in that series, and so I just don't know that it would be there. But food for thought. There we go. We had a GPS snafu. What would an episode be without a GPS snafu? I had unsnapped my line, but my tractor was refusing to realize that, so I had to turn off the GPS to break it out of its spell. But that gets you here where we're at with this, and so I'm going to wrap it here. I've certainly kept you long enough if you've watched this all, and again, if you have, I thank you immensely. If you're still around also, absolutely would be greatly appreciated, because it helps the channel, it helps the visibility of everything. If you like the video, if you haven't yet, and certainly if you haven't subscribed, I'd encourage you to do that. Pressing toward that magic 1,000 subscriber mark. I've cleared 800 recently in the last few days, so another milestone come and gone, and hopefully we won't trickle back down, as sometimes happens, and fall below that. But sometimes, once you get to that point where you're 5-10 subscribers above a target, usually as long as content's being put out, what I've seen is, there's enough retention there that people are like, yeah, stuff's coming up, I'll stay subscribed in case something I want to see comes up. But my reality, I understand, is because I have less and less time, like this is starting to become right now another kind of Farming Simulator only channel, because there's very little else I can get done. I'm definitely trying to keep up with the bread and butter stuff, which is the truck sims and things like that. That's kind of started everything, the truck sim and the farm sim. But it's few and far between that, other than, like I said, PGA Tour is pretty easy to produce stuff for. So I did actually, in the last couple days, get through like 6 rounds there, because I really enjoy that game as well, and it's super easy to get through rounds there. It doesn't take hours and hours and hours like like this does. So that's just the reality of fitting it in real life. But, you know, a lot of the other things have fallen off. The Frontier games, the Rail Route, the Train Simulator. It's just been a challenge to try to find the time to squeeze those in as well. So I can only do what I can do, and hopefully people will stick with me with what I can do. And if you're one of those, again, if you could like and subscribe, would be greatly appreciated. And I will see you next time.